excuse us. Yes, Eileen Casey will be doing a gold leaf demo on November 18th. And if you haven't seen a gold leaf demo, it is well worth attending to see how Eileen maneuvers that medium with her pastels. And again, you can find out.
Will either of those demos be done on Zoom?
Yes, they will all be done on Zoom. Yes. And you can find out more on our webpage. So I would like to quickly, again, thank Anne, because Anne put together a movie of all the submissions to this show. So the award winners are in here and everybody else. And it was a lot of work and a very slow process. And Anne did a wonderful job. I'm sure you'll all agree. Some of the images may be a bit blurry, but that is just because of the differences between your computer, Online Jury Show's computer, our computer. It just sometimes happens in the tech world. But if you view them through the webpage, I'm sure you'll see them all crystal clear. So let's start the movie and everybody can see the work of their fellow artists. Again, thank you, Anne, for putting that together. I think everybody would have to agree that we all probably deserve a good round of applause because we are a really talented bunch of people. That was wonderful to see the range and scope of everybody's work. It was really, really great. I will now like to introduce our judge of awards. Adrian Giuliani is an international award-winning pastel artist known for her contemporary florals, still lifes, and self-portraits. She is a signature member of the Pastel Society of America and an IAPS Master Circle member. Her work was recognized with the Daniel E. Green Memorial Award, and she also recently won an Award of Excellence in the 2022 IAPS Master Circle Convention Show. Adrian loves sharing her unique perspectives and methods of working. Using both observation from life and a great deal of freedom, she encourages her students to explore fearlessly. She teaches an ongoing PSA Zoom class entitled Finding Your Freedom Through Observation, Exploration, and Joy. That PSA Zoom class is offered on Mondays from 1:30 to 4:30, and you can find out more information through the PSA office. The piece shown here with Adrian's picture is called Harmonic Celebration. It was featured on the 2020-2021 cover of Pastelagram and was in an IAPS exhibition in Chicago. I will now turn it over to Adrian for the award ceremony. Adrian?
Well, first, I just want, thank you so much. Was that Lisa? I just wanted to say thank you so much. Thanks for the beautiful introduction. I wanted to say that this show is so beautiful. It was challenging for me to choose the award winners because there was so much gorgeous work in the show. So kudos to everyone for being in the show and for, of course, to all the award winners. And thank you for having me as your awards juror. I really enjoyed it.
Let's just wait for Colleen to get that first painting up. There we go.
Okay. So with this piece, and please let me say, feel free to correct me if I mispronounce any of the names. I'm not sure if this is Macau or Michael Gilbert for the piece Room. What I love about this piece is the sense of movement and motion of these, this truck and this car zooming down the road. And I think the artist was so successful in extending the colors and the lines from the truck to create that sense of motion. The artist even has a diagonal line extending from where the truck is, and it continues into the sky, which I think works really well. I absolutely loved this feeling of motion in the road as well. And then in the sky, there are just some beautiful textures and subtle colors that give us a place to rest, right? Because I always like to have a resting area. So that's a beautiful area where there's not all that, movement and energy, but it's just actually quite beautiful. And I love also the composition and how there was more on one side and less on the other. This is a great, fun piece. So congratulations to Macau Gilbert on this wonderful piece, Broom. Oh, and this piece by Donna Blunt, Fishing by the Shore. Okay, so my husband and boys used to go fishing. This kind of brings back memories. It's also so beautifully done. I love the different body language and the postures of the different fishermen, how some of them seem to be interacting, others are just, on their own. It gives it a feeling of, it really rings true, the different postures, one person with his hand back, the other one. So I love that. And I also think this artist did such a gorgeous job on these reflections of the fishermen in the water. There's a beautiful sense of movement from the sand to the light. I love the sense of light to the water and then around to the sky. And there's a connection, which I always love to have a connection between different parts. And there is a connection between the water and the sky. That's very beautiful. But of course, we see the horizon line. I love the light in this piece and the sense of depth. And I also love, this gentleman wearing the yellow t-shirt. He's got a little bit of purple, which is perfect for the shadow. And a couple of them have the artist has just kind of suggested the pattern, the pattern on the bathing suit. It looks like it might be an American flag. I just like how it's just suggested. But this piece is wonderful. I was so excited to explore it and look around, and I think it's beautifully done. And so congratulations to Donna Blunt on a really wonderful piece. So Lisa Jolick, I was immediately welcomed into this wonderful piece. I felt like I was walking down this beautiful path with dappled light. It's absolutely gorgeous. I love the colors. I love the mark making. I like how we enter it, and there's just there's this there are some beautiful light shifts of light that I really appreciate, and we see some suggestions of the flowers. Then I'm led down this wonderful path of soft light, dappled light. And to my left, I see the grasses, which are really beautifully done, and the light is hitting them, and that's gorgeous. I also love how I travel around from that middle area to the dark area to there's a branch from the trees that leads me back and around. So I really flow through this piece nicely. I love the colors. I love how some of the trees are lost in the sky and the beautiful sky holes. I really felt like I was traveling down this path. So congratulations, Lisa, for a very gorgeous piece. And this is Janet Schwartz's piece. Okay, so let me tell you, my first impression of this piece was that of surprise. And I like to be surprised when I view a piece. I love it when I don't feel like it's something that I've seen before. And so this had a great element of surprise. In fact, when I initially looked at it, I said, oh, wait, this is upside down. And then I said, oh, I quickly realized that this was a crystal clear reflection, right, in this ice puddle. And I love the sense of the foam and the way she created it, and also the way she connected it to the reflection. It's very beautiful. And I love also those little speckles. I don't know how she did those, but by the reflection and the other area where there's foam. It's absolutely beautiful. And of course, then the reflection. This crystal clear reflection is wonderful. I think that perhaps there's some abstraction in this because this is really crystal clear. I mostly loved it. I know Janet Schwartz. I didn't know that she had done this piece, but her work is very bold. It's fearless. And that is what I loved about this piece, because it really gave me, I think the artist took a very bold chance. And I also like the angles and everything about it. So congratulations to Janet Schwartz on Crystal Clear. Okay, and this other honorable mention is by Jory Mason. It's called More to See. Um, I I like the title of the piece. It's intriguing. I saw this as a self-portrait of, and I guess it is a self-portrait of Jory sitting by the window. However, we don't see the window, but we see the light streaming through, the light from the blinds. And I love how the light is streaming across her face. And then it kind of stops on the one cheek and then takes up a subtle pattern on her hair. I am immersed in the emotion in this piece. I was really looking at her eyes and was so moved. I don't know if this is how Jory was feeling, but what I was feeling was a sense maybe of a little bit of sadness, maybe a little bit of worry. And then I also feel the connection to the outside world with this window and also the light streaming in gave me a feeling of optimism and hope. So I found this to be a very beautiful and emotional and expressive piece. So congratulations to Jory on a gorgeous self-portrait. Okay, and My Girls by Dave Caphammer, who won an honorable mention. Okay, so I didn't know who his girls were, right? But now I know who his girls are, and I just love this. So first of all, it feels personal to me. I see, his two girls out there, his woman girl and also his doggy. And the way that the dog is sitting reminds me of how my dog sometimes sits. It rings so true. Those long shadows are just so beautifully done. I love how they're on this angle and it leads you up to the stars of the show. The sense of light is absolutely beautiful. It really has a limited color palette and it's used so well. I like how she just has her hat and her sunglasses and her gear ready for the day out on the beach. And I also, I like the suggestion of the rocks in the background. I found this to be a wonderful personal piece, and I think it's extremely well done. So congratulations to Dave on My Girls. Okay. So Cheryl Wildermuth with Promise of Rain, third place in the open division. So what I love about this piece is the mood that it creates. First of all, I feel the impending storm. And in the clouds that she's so beautifully created, they feel like they're gray, but they also have some subtle blues and greens. And then she uses some restraint, which I don't think I have that much restraint, but in just these soft touches of pinks and blues. And of course, this wonderful tree, which feels like it really rings true. I don't know exactly if it's a willow tree. I'm not good at that, but I love how it looks like it has a definite shape. It connects to the sky. And then the colors from the sky are repeated subtly in the grass. It's beautifully composed as well. I feel like I can definitely sense the impending storm. And maybe because I just really want this, I need this right now, but I also feel that those soft touches of pink and blue give me a feeling of hope and of good things to come. This is also a limited color palette and it's extremely beautiful. So congratulations, Cheryl, on your piece with Promise of Rain. Okay, so Yael. Well, Yael knows cats and she paints them so masterfully. This is very wonderful to me. Well, first of all, I love this feeling of this curled up cat. I love how we're led into the piece with her, her legs are kind of extended a bit and she's curled, or he or she is curled up. the little slits of the eyes, you can tell this cat is sleeping. And I like how there's a light that leads us up and a repetition and a transition of soft colors that are just so beautifully done. The face has less light on it, but there are a couple of areas of light by that ear. And then there's the dark portion too. So that kind of leads you to a focal point. And then I also love the way we're led into the piece with this orange mark and how the orange is subtly repeated on her paws in different places. It's absolutely beautiful. And also the way that the fabric and the pattern on the fabric is very loosely done. It gives it a sense of energy. The colors are, and the repetition of the colors, the composition, everything is so masterfully done in this piece, and I greatly enjoyed Morning Nap. So congratulations to Yael. And the first place in the open division is Karen Israel, A Change in the Weather. Wow. Okay. So Karen Israel is a storyteller. She's brilliant at telling a story in her pieces, and this is no exception. She also has an incredible sense of design. But let me tell you that I really feel the sense of these two people. I don't know their relationship, but they're an interesting pair. These two people walking down the street in the pouring rain. I really feel the rain coming down. I love the body language of this woman who is walking with confidence and she's swinging her arm out. And, she looks like maybe she doesn't even mind the rain. She looks rather happy to me. And then there's this gentleman walking next to her who I think looks a little bit more reserved and maybe not as thrilled with the rainy weather. I love the umbrella, the yellow umbrella, and how it connects to the taxi cab and how we see the beautiful reflections of the different vehicles in the road. And it just feels like a wet road. It's so beautifully done. I like how we have a sense of depth. Some of the vehicles are close, some are farther away. Also the lines in the road. I love the repetition of the blue from what she's wearing that is subtly done in some of the windows on the building. And then I think it looks like a turban, forms of that color are subtly repeated on the storefronts. And that whole area, including the trees, is just beautifully suggested. But we know where our eye must go. I also love the sense of light on her face. And just a couple of the touches of her red glasses, the little glint and sparkle of her earrings. So I feel like those things make it ring so true. And this is just an absolutely wonderful piece, A Change in the Weather, that also tells a great story about these two people walking in the rain. So congratulations, huge congratulations to Karen Israel for a wonderful, wonderful piece.
Thank you so much, Adrian. I think we all gained a lot from your thoughtful comments and insights as you went through these award winners, and I appreciate the time and the thought that you put into making your award choices. I know, as you have said, that it was not easy.
Yeah.
I want to move right on to your judges talk because I'm interested in this as well. Adrian's talk this evening is entitled Ideas and Philosophies About Art Making, Looking at Things in a New Light. And I think we all can benefit from a talk like this. Adrian would like to make this talk interactive. So we will do that this way. Everybody will stay muted. And if you have a question or a comment at some point during Adrian's talk, you can unmute yourself. Excuse me. Let us know who you are. And let Adrian know what your question or your comment is. I think the talk sounds fascinating, and without wasting any more time, I'd like Adrian to go ahead and share her screen and her ideas on art making.
Okay, thank you so much, Lisa. Yeah, so over the past, especially the past few years, the past several years, I have come to look at certain things in some different ways. And I've shared some of those ideas with my students. And I also have done a few of these presentations throughout the over the past couple of years. And so some of you may have seen me do it, but even if you did, this is going to be a little different. This is a different group and a different dynamic. And as Lisa said, I would like this to be interactive. So you're muted now, but please, if you, as Lisa said, if you have anything that you want to ask me or you want to add a comment, please unmute yourself and identify yourself and just ask me the question or make the comment. And now I'm going to share my screen. Okay. Okay, can everyone see that? That's ideas. The title is Ideas and Philosophies about Art Making, Looking at Things in a New Light. And the first part is just observation. So most of the work that I do these days is done from life. And I do a ton of observation. I always start out that way. And then a little bit later on in the process, I might, engage my artistic instincts. Towards the end, I might use a sense of freedom. But I always then go back to the observation because I think that anchors the piece. And I don't know if you guys are familiar, but when I was about 14 years old, I was introduced to a book called Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain. And that book really had an impact on me. And what it said was, it told you to turn off the illogical side of your brain that says, oh, I know what it looks like. I know what the tree looks like. I know what the flower looks like. And instead, just to do true observation. And, to look, I love a good quirky organic shape. So look at those quirky shapes, the organic shape of a leaf, the actual shape, not what you think it is. The angle of the stem and the relationship of one thing to another in size and shape and value and angle and location. And to me, it's those bits of reality that will make your piece ring true. And I have a quote here from Monet. He said, when you go out to paint, try to forget what objects you have before you, a tree, a house, a field, or whatever. Merely think, here is a little square of blue, here an oblong of pink, here a streak of yellow, and paint it just as it looks to you, the exact color and shape. And I agree with this. The only thing I may think of in a different way is that I will feel free to change the color as long as the value is correct. But I do feel like we have to forget about what we're painting. And an example of that would be when I did years ago, I did a tea kettle series. And sometimes I would get this comment from fellow artists saying, how were you able to create that look of metal? Right? Because I was painting my old tarnished tea kettle. And my response was, I wasn't trying to paint metal. I was just doing some observation, which gave it that metallic look. But I wasn't thinking I am trying to paint metal. And I'm never thinking about the objects I'm painting. I'm always immersed, right, in the shapes and the values and the relationships. Okay. So the next part is that I embrace confusion. So what do I mean by that? Well, I remember sharing this with some of my students at one point years ago, and a couple of them giggled. But I actually do embrace confusion because I believe that creativity comes out of confusion. And there are two ways that confusion can happen within a piece when we're working. One is just inherently. Maybe I'm working on a complicated floral with many blooms, and invariably, at a certain point, I may get a little confused within the piece. Well, first of all, I embrace that feelings. I think of it as a good thing, and I usually, my remedy is just to slow down and do some true observation, to get curious and just to commit to learning something. And I have to tell you, when you do that, great things come out of it. There's a second way that confusion can happen, and that is that we may create it. So there are many ways to do that, but one of the ways is to paint over a piece that didn't work out. And I have a lot of those, right? Or one that I never finished. And it's actually really fun. I tend to paint directly over it. I don't usually wash it off or wipe it down first. So I might take the piece and flip it around, and then I'll leave some of what was there that I like, and I'll start, maybe smudging out certain areas and painting a whole new piece on top of it. It does lead to a little confusion, but it's actually very fun, and I recommend it if you've never tried painting directly over a piece that didn't work out. So some of the things that we think of as negative, such as confusion or uncertainty or even frustration, they are not roadblocks. They're actually tools that will open up one's creativity. Okay. Okay, the next thing is the mind, body, and spirit connection. And first, I want to preface this by saying that when I fully do these things 100%, I feel great, right? I feel empowered. I feel wonderful. When I get away from them, I feel worried and I feel a little stressed. So I like when I fully am doing these things in my life. And then I'm going to actually go back in time a little bit and share something personal. So when I was turning 17 years old, I reached puberty. I reached puberty at an older age. And at that time, for the first time in my life, I experienced some depression. And I really didn't know what to do with those feelings and emotions. And even though I had two wonderful parents and a wonderful family, I didn't share it with anyone. I kept it to myself for whatever reason. And then I had bouts of depression throughout my life, not constantly, but I had bouts of it. And then fast forward to many years later, when I turned 23, I met my husband-to-be. And when we started dating and we got to know each other, I shared it with him. Fast forward many years later, I learned some things that really changed the way I lived my life. They gave me a feeling of empowerment and also a feeling of connection, because I am not highly religious, but I am spiritual. And it's really three things, and I'm just going to share them with you right now. The first part is gratitude. So every day I like to go through gratitude, and I say thank you for my life, my health, the health of my family and friends, and just all the people in my life who love me and who I love dearly. My family, my friends, this great, amazing artistic community who I am so grateful for. And so I do that, and then I usually say it out loud because I think it gives it so much more power. The second part is really cool, and it's called visualization, but to me, it's less visual. And that's when I say thank you for the things that haven't yet happened, but things that I want. But I say them like they've already happened, and I say thank you in advance. And I say it with so much excitement. I am so excited and I am so grateful and I am so sure. And I say it out loud and in detail. And again, I say it out loud because it gives it more power. Sometimes I might write it in my journal. And this may sound silly, but to me, it's not. To me, it's like a powerful form of prayer. And this practice has gotten me through some of the most challenging times in my life, because we all have those times, right? Where we go through difficult periods and it's challenging. So this practice has really gotten me through those times. And like I said, I feel like it's a powerful form of prayer. And the third thing I do is I get outside. And I got my headphones on, I got my music playing, I probably have my doggie with me, and I'm going out for a walk or going out for a run. And I am not a runner, but I'm out there moving and breathing and listening to my music and saying hi to the neighbors. And I got to tell you, you can't help but feel great when you're doing that. It's virtually impossible. And you should do whatever, that thing that you love to do. If it's Zumba, or if it's, I know that my friend Laura Pollock, she goes out for a 40-mile bike ride. So whatever that thing is that you love to do, obviously this is important to us as human beings, just for our mental health. But why is this important to us as artists? I think that if you want to create a sense of energy in your artwork, then go create it in your body first. If you want a sense of freedom in your artwork, then create it in your body and your mind. By doing all these things, we create that energy and that freedom that then connects to our artwork. So I believe it's all connected. And please share, like, if you have anything you want to share, please share it. And, your own experience or anything that you want, any thoughts or questions you want to share. Okay, so the next thing is that every painting session is valuable. And I will speak for myself. So I have those stacks upon stacks of pieces that have not worked out. Okay, and I got to tell you, the top artist in the pastel world has them too. He or she may not be sharing them with everyone, but they have them too. So why are they valuable? Well, I think that as long as we pay attention, we're going to learn so much from every painting session, right? And so I always tell myself, as long as I've learned something, that painting session is a victory. Remember that, it's a victory. And then we get to paint over some of the ones that didn't work out. So then we get a whole new piece out of the deal. Okay. Respect your own artistic journey. I'm taking a sip of water. Don't try to paint like another artist. Learn from them, be inspired by them, but find your own artistic voice, that thing that makes your work yours. And if you haven't found it yet, my best suggestion would be to just immerse yourself in your own artistic experience. You can, take workshops and classes. You can share your work. You can exhibit it. You can even gather together with other artists and paint. But I think something special happens also when we work on our own. And also, the other thing I would recommend, if you haven't found your artistic voice, is to do some work from life. Because I think something special happens when we do that. And, it really, I don't know of any other way to strengthen your drawing skills as much as when you do work from life. So I think if you do all those things organically, you're going to find your own artistic voice. And it's going to change over the years. It's not going to remain stagnant. And then I said, sing your own song joyfully, because I think we should. Okay. So the next part is to be brave. Okay. Take some chances. Do not worry about losing something or doing something incorrectly. If you lose something, you will find something new. just learned something. I said here, open yourself up to completely making an utter mess. And I am serious here because sometimes I willfully allow myself to create an utter mess. And I have to say that some pretty interesting things sometimes emerge from that mess, you know, and if nothing else, it's going to be so cathartic. So I said here, if you learn something, it's worth it. So here's an example. This is a slide that I created for my students. And during the pandemic, I decided I was going to do a self-portrait series. And I had done many self-portraits, but I think I'd only done one pastel. So at a certain point, this was not the first one, but I was working on this self-portrait. And I liked where it was going, but I was unsure of my direction. And so I said to myself, well, perhaps I could just set the piece aside, which is a perfectly logical thing to do when you don't know your direction. But simultaneously, I had another thought. Or I could go in with complete freedom. And that is what I chose to do. And I was very excited about it. I think I went out for my second run of the day, right? Because if you want to create that sense of freedom in your artwork, you got to create it in your body first. I came in from my run. I went into my dusty studio and I picked up my red Terry Ludwig pastel. And this was a time, not only was it during the pandemic, but this was a time of a great deal of racial injustice and racial upheaval. And I felt so many strong emotions about it. And so I picked up that red pastel and I very intentionally made marks all throughout the piece for two reasons. One, to lead the viewer's eye around the piece, and two, to fully express everything I was feeling at that moment. And I remember completing the piece in that session. And I also recall thinking to myself, I don't care if anybody else likes this piece. I liked it, and it said what I needed to express. And I also knew the title right away, which is unusual for me. The title was Breaking Through Boundaries. And I think I posted it at that time. And then later in the year, I submitted this and two other pieces to the Pastel Society of America exhibition, Enduring Brilliance, which was an online show that year due to the pandemic. And I was very honored when this piece was juried into the show. And I was even more excited when Marjorie Shelley, the pastel expert at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, gave my piece the Daniel E. Green Memorial Award. And that was like a mind-blowing honor to me. I just couldn't even believe that. And I think I reached out to Wendy Caporelli at the time, who was Daniel Green's wife, but she also she's so lovely, but she's also an outstanding artist in her own right. But of course, she was mourning. Then in 2022, when I was at the IEPS convention, she came running up to me and she said, I think I had a blurb about this in the Globe. She said, I am so happy that you won this award, which was so lovely. And then she just said that she just wanted to keep Daniel's memory and legacy alive, which of course it is to this day. Yeah, she is the loveliest. So my point here is that the piece was lovely before I fully expressed myself, but I decided that it didn't say everything yet. Okay, so it's good to take a chance and do something brave, do something a little different, right? What's the worst thing that can happen? If we lose it, okay, it's not the end of the world, right? Let's take that great chance. And sometimes I get a little brazen. I can be brazen at times, and that's different from brave. So have I ever lost a piece by being too brazen? Yes, I have. But that's okay. We all have that experience from time time to time. Okay, the next part is good drawing, embrace imperfection. So I was doing this presentation at one point for a society. And I remember that one of the members said to me when I got to this slide, that sounds like a contradiction. And then he proceeded to express to me some of the struggles he was going through. And, you know, I listened to him, and then I gave him some suggestions and some advice that I thought would be helpful. And ultimately, I was able to then explain what I meant by this. So yeah, we have to have good drawing skills, right? The drawing is the foundation of the painting. So we have to have good drawing skills. We have to be using good observation. But I think as long as we're using those things, the good observation and good drawing skills, you may embrace a bit of imperfection. I said here, perfection is overrated. Aspire for excellence. And I think that for me, sharing a little bit of imperfection is like sharing a little bit of myself, because I am not a perfect person and I don't try to be. And there is an artist on Facebook that shared at one point that he's a wonderful artist, that perfection is his goal. And that's a worthy goal for him, but it's never my goal. Okay. A little thing about me, I'm not at all rules driven. I said here that I work with a complete sense of freedom. Well, sort of. I mean, I do feel free to do whatever I want. So that's a good feeling. I think everyone should have that feeling. But I also use a lot of observation, so I have structure as well. I did go to Rhode Island School of Design, and my favorite part about RISD was that we worked from life constantly. Interestingly, we did not learn many rules, but I feel like the constant work from life is what gave me a strong foundation upon which to build once I graduated. And interestingly, when I graduated, I was immersed in children's pastel portraits, which I loved. But many years after graduation, I realized I was no longer working from life at all. And so I realized I missed it. And that's when I started doing my still lives and my florals and my self-portraits. And then I never stopped. So I might not use traditional goals, but my traditional rules, I mean, but I do have my own goals for composition. And they are a good balance of angles and repeated colors or forms of a color to move your eye around the piece and land at your focal point. Tara Wills says she doesn't believe in focal points. And I think Karen Margolis says that you may have more than one. So I love all of that. Okay, open yourself up to experimentation and exploration without any fear. Let the piece lead you. Many years ago, I had the good fortune of being able to see Lynn Aselta, who is an extraordinary artist, creating an in-person demo. And I think she also chose a word, maybe a verb, if I remember correctly, of what her piece was going to be about. I thought that was kind of beautiful. And she has a very definite idea of exactly where she's going. She knows precisely where she's going. And I have a general idea, but I guess I'm open to surprises. And sometimes I let the piece lead me. So my point here is that it's all wonderful. Like, we all work differently and we can celebrate all of them. Okay, so here is a piece that I did more recently. My husband had bought me some yellow roses for Valentine's Day. I wanted to paint it from above, from a high aerial view, because I think it's such a dynamic viewpoint. I'm sitting currently at my art table, and I was having trouble getting that view with the long stems. So I decided to take a photograph from above. I did this on UArt dark sanded paper, and I took this photograph. And then I was looking at the photograph on my iPad as I worked. And that is unusual for me because normally with my still lives, I only work from life. So doing this kind of opened up my mind to saying, you know what, I really worked in a very similar way that I usually work from life. And so I enjoyed the process very much. And I got this cool overhead view. Okay. Okay, playing with abstraction. These are some of the ways we can do it. We can flatten some colors. We can make a specific simplified mark based on observation to represent something. We can combine realism with abstraction. And if you go on the Pastel Society of America Facebook page, by the way, if you want to join that page, if you're not yet a member, we're doing some plumbing here. So if you hear knocking, I'm so sorry. But anyway, so what I was going to say is on the Pastel Society of America page, if you want to join that page, just let me know and I will be happy to like make sure I accept you right away. But also if you go into the albums, you'll see that we have some featured artists in there. And one of our featured artists was Diane Rosen, who is a PSA master pastelist. And in her bio, she talks about how she combines realism with abstraction. And it was fascinating what she said. And she also said, I don't think that that's a contradiction. And I agree with her. It's really wonderful to combine the two. At the end, especially, have a bit of fun. After all that good observation, allow your instincts to choose the colors, to move your eye around the piece and make the piece cohesive by repeating colors. At this point, if I'm using a photograph, I usually set the photograph aside. If I'm working from life, I usually stop looking at my setup and just complete it with my artistic instincts. Okay. This was maybe my first tea kettles from in my series from many years ago. But I'm going to tell you a little bit how I worked. And also how even at this stage of my artistic journey, I used a little bit of abstraction. So this was piece. Did someone say anything? Okay, I wasn't sure. So this piece was in the PSA show. So that was so cool. And also Richard McKinley, I found out later because I didn't know what the National Arts Club tour was at that time. But back then he used to go around and talk about some of the pieces and he spoke about my piece. And I had Jean Rosario Smith tell me some of what he said. So he talked about he liked the composition. He thought it was unique. And I think he ended by saying, I'll never look at my breakfast the same way again or something like that. So that meant a lot to me coming from Richard McKinley. But also, let me just say, I work directly. So I don't normally do a wet underpainting, although sometimes now I might splash my piece with water at a certain point and work on top of it. But I start out working directly on the paper without an underpainting. And this was done on Wallace Belgian mist sanded paper, which sadly is no longer available. And I work all around the piece a little bit at a time. I don't complete one area and then move to the next. And one of my reasons for that is that I want to remain cognizant of the entire piece as I'm working. So eventually, maybe, by doing a little observation at a time, I guess I got somewhat of a three-dimensional feeling on this tea kettle, but then look behind it. There's like this fuchsia mug. First of all, I punched up the color just because I wanted to, and I also kind of flattened it out. And then to the left of that, there was a honey jar sitting there. This is all done from life. I was actually, at that time, painting in my kitchen. I was at a standing easel. I set it up. I made a cup of tea. I set it up on my kitchen table. And this, just that little yellow mark there is the top of the honey jar. And then I just barely, suggested the rest of it. And I think instinctively I felt like it needed another yellow mark next to it. So I created that. But that is definitely some abstraction. And then in the foreground at the time, before I would do my tea kettles, I would do a quick compositional sketch. So my preliminary sketches I left in the piece. So they're in the piece in the foreground. Sometimes I put my materials in there or my pencils or something, things like that. Okay, this piece is a little bit of a more recent piece, and you can see I'm getting more and more abstract. I did this piece on UArt dark paper, but I want to talk for a second about my setup and about my studio, which is not, neither of them are fancy. I do not have a fancy studio. I do not have a fancy setup at all. Okay, so let me tell you. So at a certain point years ago, I purchased some artificial flowers from Amazon.com. I'm trying not to order from them as much these days, but I did. And I got two bouquets of roses. They were kind of small roses, but they're lovely. And so I painted them, several times. The other thing that I purchased at that time was a package of poster boards of different colors because I was stuck in a color palette and I couldn't get out of it. I was like stuck in this one color palette. And so I thought, let me buy these poster boards. It'll be fun. This will maybe help me get out of this color palette that I'm stuck in. So here I chose this reddish, backdrop. I also had an old lamp for 40 years that finally broke when my parents bought me my art table, which I still have. It's a nice art table, but this lamp finally broke. So I decided, somebody recommended a method light. And I did purchase that. So the method light has a little remote where you can change the intensity and the coolness or warmth of the color of the light. So anyway, so that's what this was. I had my artificial flowers. I was using my UArt dark. I put them in a vase. I put my method light on it. The method light created some interesting shadows. I created some of what I saw. Eventually, again, I work around the piece. I guess I got somewhat of a three-dimensional feeling on that vase, but look at those flowers. They're super abstract, right? I mean, sometimes I'm just creating a moment where I see a linear, motion of something. I don't even care if they look like roses, which they probably don't. I just creating moments where I'm asking myself, what shape? What's the value? And so it's super abstract. This piece was in the PSA show. And by the way, some of these pieces sold. This one sold too. And I don't always sell my work, but this one sold probably because Richard McKinley was talking about it so much, which was nice. And this piece also sold in the PSA show. I've sold 3 pieces in a PSA show. So I don't know, but that's cool. That's always cool when you do. This also sold too later after this show. But this piece, same thing, except I changed up the backdrop and I made it yellow and I called it Sunlit Roses, but really abstract. And for me, sometimes I'm painting something that has sentimental value to me. Maybe it was gifted to me. But other times, what I'm trying to do is just art for art's sake, just to see what I can do with this magnificent medium of pastel, how I can play with it, how I can create something original and play and explore. Okay, here's another one. I think I ended up overworking this one, but I liked just the little bit of distortion in the vase. Okay. All right. Going through a rut. I don't know about you guys, but I sometimes go through periods where I just can't get anything good. And, I always tell myself that just means that a breakthrough is coming. And I find it to be true. So after that long rut where I just can't get anything good, right? Then boom, I do that piece that I really love, or if I'm lucky, maybe it gets into a big show. And then years ago, I saw this clip, and it was David Sylvester, who was an art critic, and he was speaking in 1967. And I just love what he said, and this is what he said. Artists must be allowed to go through bad periods. They must be allowed to do bad work. They must be allowed to get in a mess. They must be allowed to have dud experiments. They must also be allowed to have periods where they repeat themselves rather aimlessly and fruitlessly before they can pick up and go on. He went on to say, the kind of attention that they get now, the kind of atmosphere of excitement which attends with the creation of works of art today, that everything is done too much in the public eye, the pressures are of a kind which are anti-creative. So I thought this was curious that he said that in 1967. Imagine what he would think in today's world of social media. But what I really loved is that he said, we must be allowed to do bad work, right? We must be allowed to have dud experiments, because if we never have dud experiments, how can we ever learn and grow? Do you guys agree with this? I just want to know, what do you guys think? Do you agree that we have to do some bad work and it serves us? Anyone anyone agree? Okay.
I'll agree.
Okay, because I think that right? I loved that he said this. This was an art critic, and it was so true. I think it's so true. I think we need that, right? We need to do some bad work and have some experiments that don't go anywhere, right? We learn something from them. Yeah, totally agree with that. And you can look up that clip if you want to hear him saying it. I said here, your subconscious mind knows the answers. Probably I should have said your intuition knows the answers. Sometimes it might tell me to put down a color. I don't know if you've ever had this happen. That seems like it would not work. It doesn't seem to make any sense, but I like to do it anyway. If my intuition tells me, I like to listen to it, even if it seems to make no sense. Okay. So a change in my process. I don't know if you guys know this, or some of you may not, that I have multiple sclerosis. I have MS. I was diagnosed many years ago, and I'm doing very well. But I noticed a couple of changes. And at one point, I noticed that I continued to move around the piece. But I found that in some cases, it was a little bit difficult to see the overall of the piece. So what I began to do was to go to whatever part of the piece that I was most interested and most fascinated with at that moment. And so consequently, my process became even more joyful because I was always where I was most fascinated. And it was interesting that I didn't connect this to my MS at all. In fact, I was super excited about it. I was sharing it with my students, and so I guess sometimes when something happens that potentially could be looked at as a bad thing, we could make it into a good thing, So here I was so happy about it. Okay, imagine if you didn't care about the result of the piece. Just go in bravely and play. Get curious. I think that's how we do truly groundbreaking work. And I always say that my artistic journey is serious, but each painting session is not. Okay. Inviting the viewer into your process. Here are some of the ways we can do that. We can leave some line work showing. We can leave some substrate, some of the paper showing through. We can leave the piece a bit unfinished. We can leave a bit of mystery, some intrigue, so that the viewer may fill in the parts which I have not spelt out. That way, the viewer becomes a part of your piece and a part of your process. I think that's so beautiful. And here is a quote by Degas. Degas said, "A painting requires a little mystery, some vagueness, and some fantasy. When you always make your meaning perfectly plain, you end up boring people." So I don't know if I agree with that part, but I do like to, at least for me, I like to have a little bit of mystery in my work, right? And here's an example of that. This is my piece for Dad too. My parents had gifted this to us many, many years ago, and we had it on display in our kitchen for a long, long time. And then we lost my dad 9 years ago. So eventually I said, well, why don't I paint this picture? It has special meaning to me. And so I brought it into my studio. I put some dried flowers in it. And but look at this is done on pastel premier Italian clay sanded paper. First of all, that's this gray paper. Look throughout the whole piece, you see lots of paper showing through, right? You see some line work showing through. I created those, the leaves. I wasn't thinking of them as leaves, right? Just shapes and values. I just created some of what I saw. And for the picture itself, it had this floral pattern on it, but I didn't start out by drawing that out. I just started out by looking at the values and creating those. And then at the very end, I created some of what I saw, not all of it, right? And also, if you are interested, if you want to see the final marks on this piece, you can go to my Instagram. It's one of my pinned posts. It shows my final marks on this piece. And also my other pinned post is my original writing that I did for Pastelogram. So if you're curious, you can look me up on Instagram. I'm taking an Instagram break, but my page is still there. So yeah. And I said, I like to stop when I think I have something interesting. So I stopped at this point and I looked at, I'll scan it or take a photograph, maybe post it, and then look at it a day or two later and say, am I done? And I decided I was done. Oh, thank you, Diana. So, okay. Michael, thank you so much. Congratulations. This one is just me playing. I flipped the piece upside down. I think I put down colors that felt just purely joyful to me. I splashed the piece with water. I was just playing. Fresh marks, put down a mark and leave it alone. Remember, pastel is so forgiving. But Tony Elaine has this great thing that he says. He says, if you put down a bad mark, leave it alone and put a better mark next to it. So we don't want to keep going over and over and over the same mark. I also want to say something quickly about mud. This is a paraphrasing, but I will share this paraphrase of Delacroix. It's not a quote, but he said something like this: "Give me mud on the body of Venus so long as I may surround it as I wish." So if you have a little area with some mud and you surround it with a glowing color, suddenly it's glowing, right? Okay, don't worry about losing something. If we lose something, we will find something new. When we free our minds from worry, we open up the possibilities of what we may create. Don't be precious about your work. We are allowed to have fun. After all the good observation, we get to instill a bit of fun. Flip your piece upside down. It engages our artistic instincts. Play with abstraction. Douse or splash your piece with water, then work on top. Paint over a piece that didn't work out. Forget the result. Just play and learn. Make an utter mess. Remember, you are the master of your piece. You get to do with what you want. Thank you, Karen. Congratulations. So, you might be taking a class and then, of course, the instructor is going to give you some feedback. But remember, ultimately, you're the master. Okay, this is my piece. Lisa already talked about it, harmonic celebration. I have a little story about it, but I don't have time. This is my piece, Adrian Appleseed. I did this as a demo for my in-person class where I was just showing them how we can take a simple subject and make it interesting. And I was then later on that year putting together an IAPS web show submission. And I had selected 4 pieces that I thought were very strong. But then I said to my friend Denise Page, I have this apple demo. It's just an apple, but I rather like it. And she agreed. So I added it to my submission. And what do you know? This is the piece they chose. This is the one that they chose. And I was rather delighted. So what I want to say about this is don't dismiss a piece just because it's simple. It might be simple, but what's exciting about it? What do you love about it? I also wanted to mention that for Dad 2, I had submitted to a few shows. It never got in. I didn't give up on it. And then eventually it won an award of excellence, right? So it's okay. Thank you, Sally. This usually I don't do an award ceremony and this presentation, so I know it's been a long night. But anyway, I'm almost done. This was just some project progress photos I took when I was showing my students how I paint fabric. You can see this is my original drawing on the UArt Dark charcoal paper. I'm using a 4B Soft General's charcoal pencil. And it's just like lines and angles and shapes, in an ellipse. Here's the first, here's the second stage. And I'm really just getting into that negative space. I love to start with a negative space. And I'm scumbling. I'm putting refresh marks from asking myself, what's the value? I'm scumbling over some of them. And this is the next stage. Now I'm just getting some of the reflected light in there, but I still haven't done that much on the, thank you, Joelle, on the tea kettle itself. Eventually I get to the tea kettle and I kind of like to stop when I have something interesting. So I stopped at this point. I wasn't sure if I was done. I had that part where there was like no pastel on the tea kettle, but I thought, it's right. It'll work because that part maybe would get obscured by the steam. And so, I was done. And I also created some of the textures in there where the light was hitting it, but not all of them, because when you put light on something, some things fall out in reality. We don't see every detail. Okay, this is me just having some crazy fun. I was painting over a piece. Thank you so much, Lisa. I've never done this with an award ceremony. So thank you for hanging in there. I was just having some fun. Like I found this piece lying around in my studio. And it was this lively floral. And so I decided, you know what? I had never finished it. And I decided to flip it around and paint a self-portrait right on top of it. Normally with my self-portraits, I don't start out like this. I usually start out with the structure of the face and the light and shadow, on the face. But for some reason, I was creating the features, I think because there was so much chaos going on underneath. This was the piece. I did leave some of that yellow, but I subdued it with a little purple, even though there was no yellow behind me. I don't worry so much about likeness with my self-portraits. When I did children's portraits, I always wanted to get a likeness. When using a sense of conviction, we are allowed to play with reality. Create something new and original. Our art can be what we desire it to be. Change the definition. The choice is yours. Okay, the power of decision. Make some decisions and get certain and excited about the outcome. The power of decision is immense. Speak aloud to give it more power. We get to direct our lives. Remember, some things take time. So if you have, a goal and you haven't achieved it yet, remember that some things take time. If you are that committed to it and that excited about it and that sure of it, and you're taking some action, it will happen, right, in some form. And sometimes we need to be flexible and change our goal a little bit. I also noticed that I've achieved many of my goals, but there are a couple, two that I'm thinking of, that I have not yet achieved. And I realize what I need to do is schedule it. Right, I need to do them. So remind me of that later. Write goals down. Don't be afraid to speak about them to others. Choose the right people. Okay. Immerse yourself in your own artistic journey. Connect with other artists. Support them. Do not compare yourself to others. You and your artwork are unique. And that is it. And so, that is it. I'm glad I was able to complete it because I know it's a lot. Thank you guys so much. Oh my gosh. Did I thank everyone? Colleen, Alexia, Anne, Lisa. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. This was an incredibly beautiful show. And I really enjoyed seeing it and being the award juror. I hope you enjoyed that presentation. I know
Adrian, I think the presentation was spot on. And, I think it I mean, I didn't even know what comment to make because I could have commented on every single slide, in all honesty, because I think we all go through all those different stages and insecurities and doubts that you spoke about. And gosh, I could listen to the whole thing again, and because I was just trying to absorb, and
thank you.
I think you left us all with a lot to think about as we go forward in our journeys. I just would like to know that one of the last slides you said to write down your goals and talk to someone about them and choose the right people. How do you choose the right people?
Well, I was going to, but I felt a little rushed. So I said I won't.
I don't want you to feel rushed because
I know it's been a long night and everyone's tired. But so an example of that's a good question. How do you choose the right people, right? So example.
I don't know if I should be asking friends, family, other artists,
Yeah, I think it has to be someone you trust. And I was years ago, thank you so much, Cheryl, and congratulations. Years ago, a couple of years ago, I was talking to my friend, Laura Pollock, who we're good friends. And also I trust her. And we were talking and I was saying to her, I wanted to say, but I wasn't sure if I was going to share it. I wanted to share with her that I had these ideas that I wanted to share with others, right? What I just did. And I wasn't sure, but I shared it with her. And then she started talking about like my teaching and I love to teach. And I do share these ideas with them, but that's not exactly what I meant here. And then she said, why don't you do a presentation for our society, for one of her societies? And so I shared it. I opened up with someone I trust, and she gave me a great opportunity and a wonderful idea. So I think it's got to be someone that you trust. Like I wouldn't share it maybe just with anyone. What do you think? Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah. Yeah. And maybe somebody with some knowledge that you respect too, right? Like I have a friend, I don't know if Alana wants me to share this with everyone, but Alana Reisner, she's so awesome, but she will like ask Jimmy Wright for like, she'll ask him. She asks him for like, feedback, advice. And I love that, because who better to ask than Jimmy Wright, right? He knows it, he's amazing. He knows it all. So, I don't think I'm that brave. Like we have a kind of relationship. I'm on the PSA board and stuff, but I don't usually reach out to him constantly for for that kind of advice. But she does, and I think that's pretty cool. Yeah. So, but thank you guys. I mean, I was hoping that I didn't go on too long because I know this was such a long, we had the award ceremony. Usually I just do this presentation and that's it. So I'm glad that you guys hung in there with me and I hope you enjoyed it.
Well, I think from the comments and everything that everybody did get a lot out of it, even if they couldn't make the whole time. I mean, I think it just really, like I said, hit the mark for a lot of people. I don't know if anybody else has any comments or anything for Adrian or about her talk before we go. We have a few minutes and there's a few people left on. So yeah, if anybody wants to speak out, please
Adrian,
do so.
Adrian, between your pictures, your paintings that I could stare at forever, every single painting just hit me. And it was like, oh my gosh, there's so much I don't even know. There's so many elements that I wanted to just absorb. I mean, your use of color, your use of design, as you were saying, adding the abstract to the real, there's just so much to learn just by looking at your paintings. And then all your wonderful comments on top of that. I could listen to you for a very long time. You didn't have to stop.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for coming tonight and presenting and putting yourself into it. We've really gotten a lot out of this, and thank you so much.
Good. And this is such a talented group of artists. What an enormous, it was very hard. Like I spent a long time going over those images because I wanted to give more awards. There was so much good work and it was really challenging. That's a reflection of you guys, and how amazing you all are, so
really nice.
Congratulations to everyone on a really beautiful show. And thank you so much for your kind comments. I appreciate that. I am like very flawed as a person, and so I feel like I just try to make everything, all the parts of me, including my weaknesses and my, like I said, I have a stack this big of pieces that didn't work out. Not every one of mine works out, that's for sure. Probably more. I have more than you guys do.
And I think we all appreciated your honesty about your life and your challenges and about how you get in the moment to get into your studio with the mind, body, spirit thing. And, it was just what I needed to go back into my studio with a refreshed kind of attitude. And I've always believed that you learn from your mistakes maybe more than you learn from your successes, and you have to take those lessons and keep moving forward. So does anybody else have anything they'd like to say or comment on before we say goodnight?
Thanks.
Is there anything I forgot to say, Colleen or Ann, that you need to cover me for?
No,
I think Cheryl.
Just remember that the shows are going to be up, and you can look at our homepage to find out how to get to the shows. And if one of them if it's not an online juried show now, it'll be shortly. But thank you very much, and I love all the participation from all our members. We've had so much of a turnout, and you're really pretty amazing, all of you too. I've enjoyed through the painting challenges and everything else to see all your work. It's just wonderful. Thank you very much for being part of this organization.
And thank you, Adrian, for your time and your talents. We appreciate you.
Oh, you're welcome. And I think Cheryl wants to say something.
I just wanted to say this was fabulous what you shared, and I was frantically trying to take notes and everything.
Oh, me too. I will share the slides with you guys too. I'll send them to Lisa and Colleen, and so you can have them too.
Great.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Slides, but you shared so much. This was really fabulous. You taught a lot, and just it was really terrific to hear you talk. And I know at the end you were feeling rushed, but you did not.
That was my own fault.
All valuable information, and I appreciate it a lot. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Cheryl. Thank you very much. Your piece was so beautiful in the show.
Thank you so much.
All right, everybody. Well,
okay.
No one else has any comments or concerns, and I didn't forget to say anything.
You did great, Lisa.
We will wrap it up. Until next time, everybody. Thank you again for your
Okay.
participation.
Thank you.
And
Thank you so much.
it was terrific. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.